Good morning, everyone. Today, we will be discussing the Philippine English, a case of language drift by Jonathan Maliksi. Philippine English, a case of language drift, published on January 1, 2007, and it is a part of Ritsumekan Studies in Language and Culture. So let's proceed to introduction. So, the perceived decline of English proficiency in the Philippines is actually a process of indigenization. Over time, a distinct variety called Philippine English has developed, shaped by Filipino learners acquiring the language from fellow second language speakers. This variety has unique linguistic features that differentiate it from Standard English or International English. Despite increased exposure to International English, the country's education system continues to promote its localized form, or we call Pinoy English. While American English dominates call centers and FM radio, many institutions resist this shift and advocate for the recognition of Philippine English in academics. So, in this case of Jonathan Maliksi, the objective of it is we are comparing the International English to Philippine English, and Jonathan Maliksi nag-provide po siya ng mga inaugural speech, press release, and yung nakinig din po siya sa convention, which matatakal po natin sa mga susunod na slides. So let's proceed to first case na inanalyze ni Jonathan Maliksi. So, ang inanalyze niya ay ang inaugural speech of former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. So, let's proceed to A. We fight for what we believe in. So, Jonathan Maliksi said that the past tense for believe is unexpected since the time frame is present. So, since the past tense form indicates present untruth, and the sentence can be paraphrased as we fight for what we no longer believe in. Next is, we must reform agrarian reform so it can transform beneficiaries into agribusinessmen and other agribusiness women. So the redundancy of reform could easily be avoided by using other synonyms for the first reform. So, in this statement of Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, the word reform, first reform, dapat gumamit sila ng other word or synonym because the agrarian reform ay magkasama. They are literally praised. So, yung reform ng agrarian na hindi na pwedeng baguhin. But this first reform word can be changed. Okay? Kasi sa IE alam natin na hindi tayo nag-uulit ng noun because sinasubstitute natin to gamit ang pronoun. Okay, so next is, this has the awkward meaning of some beneficiaries becoming other agribusiness women. So, next. Okay, ang next na inanalyze ni Jonathan Maliksi ay yung SONA ni Gloria Macapagal Arroyo during 2007 and 2008. So, letter A is, I also ask Congress to pass legislation that brings improved long-term care for our senior citizens. Asahan natin si Ed Angara. So the compound adjectives should be hyphenated, thus English proficient and long-term. Letter B, Pag-ibig housing loans increased from 3.82 billion in 2001 to 22.6 billion pesos in 2007. This year, it experienced an 84% increase in the first 4 months alone. Superheating na. So instead of overheating, overheating is a IE, and while Gloria Macapagal used superheating. So this superheating came from the Philippine English. Okay. So next is, mining companies should ensure that host communities benefit substantively from their investments and with no environmental damage from operations. So instead of substantively, Gloria Macapagal can use substantially also. So the impact of Philippine presidents' speeches on Pinoy English may be appreciated in light of the strong effect of the leaders of society on the development of a language or language variety. According to Prime Minister Churchill, influenced teachers and editors of English to accept prepositions or particles at the end of clauses. U.S. President Eisenhower is said to have influenced the acceptance of its meaning. But the difference is that Churchill and Eisenhower are first language speakers of English, influencing other first language speakers. So the presidents of the Philippines are second language speakers and may not have the same effect on other Filipino language speakers. So in 2004, the present administration tried to impose English as the primary medium of instruction through then Education Secretary Edilberto de Jesus, but it never took off. Now, the same move is being pushed through legislation with House Bill 305 authored by Cebu Representative Eduardo R. Gulas, having been passed by the House of Representatives upon third and final reading. So if pupils nationwide or the students in the Philippines gets to learn the English of the Department of Education, so here are some of the forms and rules they will get according to the Department of Education recent press releases during July 2008. So hindi ko po lahat inilagay dito since madami ito, but kumuha ko ng iilan, 2%. Okay, so the first one is PE lexicon. So the statement here is, in the same memorandum, Panadero also enjoined the local executives to support DepEd and the community in ensuring that school-aged children actually enroll in school. So, the use of enjoin to mean request, encourage, or invite, while in IE or International English, enjoin means require. So, in Philippine English context, enjoin means the request or encouraging the school-aged children to enroll in school. While in the context of IE, enjoin means nire-require siya. Nire-require na mag-enroll ka sa school na ito. And next, Philippine English noun phrase. So, the omission of articles from nouns that require articles in IE. So, the the statement here said that the dwindling number of school enrollees is attributed to widespread poverty aggravated by rising costs of fuel and food. So, in PE noun phrase, tinanggal dito yung article na the, which supposedly in IE, nire-require na maglagay ng article. Next. Philippine English verb phrase. So, the statement are, Lapus has earlier called on the LGU city and municipal councils to come up with an anti-truancy ordinance. So, the use of the present perfect for an action before a past time frame. So, in IE naman, in IE, yung has ng PE supposedly I had. So, next, PE adverbs. So, some of the example is some 49 public schools in Pangasinan and Zambales affected by Typhoon Cosme in May received teachers and students packs containing school supplies and reference materials from Education in Emergency Cluster or EEC, the Department of Education today said. So, in PE adverbs, placement of the time adverb before the verb. So, in IE, the placement should be the time verb after the verb. Like this said today. So, the statement should be the Department of Education said today. So, next case is cut and paste English construction. So, ang sunod na case naman na inanalyze ni Maliksi is yung Memorandum Order number 54, Section 2007 of the Commission on Higher Education on the revised syllabi in Philippine 1, 2, and 3 under the new General Education curriculum. So, the statement here is, in accordance with the pertinent provisions of Public Act number 7722, otherwise known as the Higher Education Act of 1994, and by virtue of CEB Resolution number 606/2006, dated September 11, 2006, and in order to update the General Education curriculum to make the same more responsive to the demands of the next millennium, the Commission approved the revised syllabus of Filipino 1, Filipino 2, and Filipino 3 under CHED Memorandum Order number 59, Section 1996, otherwise known as New General Education Curriculum or GEC. So, the problem here is that the phrase the next millennium used in the year 2007 refers to the millennium that begins in the year 3001 or 3001. So, this revision of College Filipino is 994 years too early. So, apparently, this statement was merely copied from CHED Memorandum Order number 59, Section 1996, which refers to the next millennium as the one that began in 2001. So, indeed, the websites of other government offices as well as those of colleges and universities are a rich source of Pinoy English forms. So, let's proceed. So, the low average with reference to IE and the wide range and the big standard deviation, or placing 68% of college English teachers between 62 and 80 cast a negative light on the ability of English faculties to teach the international variety of English. So, in the sense, the number of teachers who make the grade, or in IE is also rather small. So, clearly, schools that impose fluency on IE will have a great difficulty in filling up its faculty ranks. In this data, it is impossible to stop the growth of Pinoy English. And at the same time, this could mean that schools that can convince its clientele that it is good in IE will attract more students and or will be able to charge more for the simple reason that such schools are becoming rare, even as English language proficiency is becoming more of an asset in the workplace. So, in this data, pinapaliwanag dito ni Jonathan Maliksi na hindi na mapipigilan or hindi na or patuloy pa din na lalawak yung Pinoy English, and also hindi rin maayos na mapapa-implement or maituturo ang international English, which is yun ang accurate. Okay? So, for companies that require IE among its employees, this means allotting a bigger budget for training and reconfiguring workflow to recover time spent by employees in IE training. So, the generation of Pinoy English forms is rooted in the weakening or even loss of connection with native speakers of English. So, in Pinoy English forms, sinasabi dito na dahil sa meron tayong sariling form ng English, naging mahina yung relationship or connection natin sa multinational speakers na nire-require ang IE. And proceed. For example, many English teachers' rejection of word celebrant as the word to refer to one marking his birthday, since most dictionaries define celebrant only as a person who leads a religious ceremony. So, mostly ng English teachers, nire-reject nila yung word na celebrant because iba yung meaning sa kanila dahil iba yung outdated yung nabasa nilang dictionaries. But and then these teachers then popularized the word celebrator. So gumawa sila ng sarili nilang word na may meaning na refer to one marking his birthday, and without realizing that the word refers to anyone participating in a celebration. So, in international English, the word celebrator means anyone that participates in a celebration. So, nagiging iba yung context niya sa Pinoy English sa international English. Okay? The fact is, celebrant also refers to anyone marking an anniversary, and the phrase birthday celebrant has been used in international media. So, nagkakaroon ng confusion sa mga Filipino kung ano ba ang dapat gamitin sa taong may birthday. Is it celebrator or celebrant? Okay? So, some teachers and learners also conclude that because a word is not listed in their dictionaries, so then it must not be an English word. What they have not considered is that a language changes in time, and dictionary is a mere sample of the lexicon of a language at a given time, as I said earlier. So, Dictionary publishers have a waiting period of around 5 to 7 years to be assured that new words included in the print edition have stabilized in the language. So, yung mga publisher ng dictionary, hindi lang sila basta-basta nag-i-insert ng word within a year ng formation nito. Naghihintay pa sila ng 5 to 7 years para ma-assured sila na included siya sa print edition and stable siya. For example, bling bling. Bling bling means flashy jewelry. And tree hugger means environmentalist. Hindi ito na-insert kagad sa Oxford and Merriam-Webster dictionaries until 2002. This means that relatively new words cannot be found in dictionaries available in the local market, like CAPTCHA or tweet. So the different databases of dictionaries also leads to differences in their entries. So for example, hegemony has 3 pronunciations. First is hegemony. First variant in Merriam-Webster, Oxford, Random House. And pangalawa is Encarta, hegemony. Second variant in Random House and Encarta. The last is Merriam-Webster and hegemony. Only entry in Cambridge and second variant in Merriam-Webster and Oxford. Yet, despite this reliance on dictionaries as primary source of information, most teachers and learners cannot read the phonetic transcriptions, as I said earlier, by the fact that English dictionaries do not have a common transcription system. This has led to spelling pronunciations or interpretations of pronunciation based on spelling. It's complicated by the chaotic spelling system of English. So, ang magandang example dyan is yung the word organization. With stress on the second syllable, even giving its vowel the American AE sound, instead of listed pronunciation, organization, with primary stress on the fourth syllable, secondary stress on the first, and a weak vowel for the second syllable, which may even be omitted. So, the weakening of the direct linguistic connection with native English speakers has led to the situation of Filipinos learning English mainly from each other. So, any new pronunciation, idiom, word usage, phrase structure, or even spelling generated by an adult, especially one who is looked up to by society as a good exemplar of English, gets spread by diffusion. So, ano ba ang diffusion? So, sa spray, kumbaga sa spray, kapag pinindot mo yung button ng spray, 'di ba may lumalabas? So, yung spray, yun yung nag-i-spread nung matter or let's say nung water. But in Pinoy English, ang mga tinuturing natin na diffusion or diffusers ay yung first is English teachers, second yung mga nasa politics, since in politics nire-require sila na gumamit ng English because our official language is English. And third is yung mga second language or bilingual speaker natin. And let's proceed to this fusion model for human behavior clearly explains how all these random changes in English have spread out in Philippine society. So according to Levin March, this model has 5 conditions. So, first is generation or possession. So, it refers to the individual has the object of diffusion. Next is contact. So, the individual must be connected with another by some kind of relevant communication link. And it will go down to transmission. The individual must transmit the object of diffusion. And next is acceptance. So, the other individual must accept the object of diffusion. And the last is storage. After diffusion has happened, the object of diffusion is in both individuals involved indefinitely. So, we have an example of diffusion of an idiom in a university. University easily illustrates these 5 conditions. So, nagbigay ng example si Jonathan Maliksi. So, number 1, in generation, professor thinks that the English translation of Tagalog, implikasyon sa kalusugang pampubliko, is implication to public health. So, the contact number 1 is the professor handles a class in which the students are preparing their research proposal for their term papers, and some of them use the phrase implication on public health. So, the transmission number 1, the professor corrects them and lectures on other English idioms. And sumunod dito yung acceptance number 1. The students take notes and change their proposals to implication to public health. And the last condition, ang storage. For the entire semester, the student keeps the idiom implication to in their writing and research assignments. So, bumalik sa condition na contact number 2. The following semester, the students enroll in a course handled by a visiting British professor. Dito na itatama yung English translation ng naunang contact 1. So, the transmission number 2, the new professor in turn correct the student's idiom to implication 4. So, last is the acceptance 2. The students get confused. A Filipino professor says implication 2, but British professor says implication 4. So the Philippine media use implication on. If the students look up international print media, they will read implication 4. So regardless sa turo ng British, sinusundan pa rin ng mga student yung implication for based on the international print media. So, the diffusers are easily identified as those whose relevant communication link is to hundreds of learners. The particularly strong diffusers are, number 1, as I said earlier, teachers, 2, priests and ministers, 3, administrators, 4, media practitioners, and 5, copywriters. So the low average with reference to IE and the wide range and the big standard deviation, or placing 68% of college English teachers between 62 and 80, cast a negative light on the ability of English faculties to teach the international variety of English. So, in the sense, the number of teachers who make the grade, or in IE is also rather small. So, clearly, schools that impose fluency on IE will have a great difficulty in filling up its faculty ranks. In this data, it is impossible to stop the growth of Pinoy English. And at the same time, this could mean that schools that can convince its clientele that it is good in IE will attract more students and or will be able to charge more for the simple reason that such schools are becoming rare even as English language proficiency is becoming more of an asset in the workplace. So, in this data, pinapaliwanag dito ni Jonathan Maliksi na hindi na mapipigilan or hindi na or patuloy pa din na lalawak yung Pinoy English and also hindi rin maayos na mapapa-implement or maituturo ang international English, which is yun ang accurate. Okay? So, for companies that require IE among its employees, this means allotting a bigger budget for training and reconfiguring workflow to recover time spent by employees in IE training. So, the generation of Pinoy English forms is rooted in the weakening or even loss of connection with native speakers of English. So, in Pinoy English forms, sinasabi dito na dahil sa meron tayong sariling form ng English, naging mahina yung relationship or connection natin sa multinational speakers na nire-require ang IE. And proceed.